Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and it's a 2 for Tuesday. That means this is the first of two streams we're doing today, and let's jump right into it. We had just a ton of developments happen recently. Few of them good for democracy. All of them requiring our action, and of course, exposing the GOP for what it is, which is a criminal organization. They are corruption through and through. That's all they are. Let's have a gander at what that corruption looks like in Georgia, wherein we see a new law it looks like it's going to be passed, that will attack Fani Willis. Yeah. That is, of course, because she is investigating Trump's crimes. Here it is.
What happens when the dear leader and his party decide that if the legal system's going to be used against the dear leader, then the legal system's got to go? What happens when you take it further? When you take it beyond criticizing the legal system, you take it beyond criticizing those who are investigating you, and you instead decide the system's got to go. I mean, we know what this looks like in other countries. What does it look like here?
Let me jump in ever so quickly. I apologize to Rachel. There we go. Recall that I have been pushing the importance of pursuing state charges against these electors, the false electors. Part of that reason why is because what they did, the fake electors, was, it appears, done with the knowledge of the state-level Republican Party. That means all of that leadership bears criminal responsibility for this. And if we do not get this done in court, we don't get them prosecuted, the gavel doesn't fall on them, we're going to have more of this. Anytime somebody tries to hold a Republican accountable in the legal system, they'll say, you had your chance, you lost it, now we're in power. Nope, that's no longer a law that we broke. I will also note that part of the reason I was angry at Merrick Garland and am still furious with the man is because he allowed the 2022 election to pass by without pursuing any of these people. Pursue state-level charges, folks. There are 5 states where we can get that done. Do it.
Would anyone try that here in the United States, in our era, in our time? Well, here's tonight. Here's on the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, right now as we speak. Quote, Republicans demand oversight of prosecutors amid Trump probe. Here's part of the lead from reporter Greg Bluestein at the AJC. Quote, the Georgia House tonight approved a measure to create a new state board that could punish or oust district attorneys. The latest step in an ongoing campaign by Republicans to exert oversight over prosecutors they see as skirting their duties. The measure passed the House 98-75 today over the objections of Democrats and prominent prosecutors, among them Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is leading an ongoing probe of Donald Trump. Republicans have rallied around the overhaul as a way to rein in, quote, rogue prosecutors. Powerful Republicans have put it on the fast track. The Georgia Senate has passed a similar version of this legislation, and the overall effort is backed by both Governor Brian Kemp and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. I should mention Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones in Georgia is one of the people who's been notified by the Fulton County District Attorney's Office that he himself is a target for potential prosecution in the investigation into Trump's efforts to throw out the election results in Georgia and have election results in that state falsely declare him the winner.
In a stream done about 1 month ago, and in fact several streams since then, I have mentioned this guy specifically, Burt Jones. That is one of Merrick Garland's failures. By failing to pursue the charges recommended by the January 6th committee, Merrick Garland has failed. He has failed to keep Burt Jones one of the suspects, according to the January 6th committee, one of the suspects in this crime. He has failed to keep him off the ballot. Why should he have been off the ballot? He shouldn't have been an option because he should have been in prison. Merrick Garland failed us. And these are the consequences.
The lieutenant governor is facing potential charges himself in that investigation. He and at least one Republican state senator who's also facing potential charges in that investigation, turns out they are strong supporters of this new measure that would give Republicans in the legislature effectively the power to remove prosecutors that they don't like. Facing criminal charges? How about you vote yourself the power to fire the person who's going to charge you? The former president himself, Donald Trump, as of today, is urging Republicans in Georgia that they must pass this legislation. So Republicans will have the power to remove prosecutors in the middle of their investigations and in the middle of prosecuting any particular case that Republicans might not like for any reason.
Who's that a surprise to? No one. Folks, this is... You wonder what it looks like when a country falls. You want to know what Germany looked like in the 20s. This is it. The part that will get replayed in history books over and over will be the final blow. You know, the last moment where the legitimate president is dragged out of office by a mob of people wearing red hats, and the dictator for life is installed. That's going to take up most of the attention. But what made that possible, what led up to it, are moments like these right here. If there are protests happening regarding this, we should join them. I don't know of any yet, and I am not yet a large enough channel that I can say we need to protest in Washington this weekend and trust that I'll be able to get a crowd out there that won't make it look like there's anything but fringe support for justice in the United States of America. I can tell you, be on the lookout for protests about this. Join them if you care. Most importantly, make sure that you are making your voice heard through the means you do have available. There are contact links in the description. Get state charges going against Trump. We need as many blows raining down on him so he can block as few as possible. So he can get hit by some of them. He did enough crimes. I did 2 streams listing all of his crimes. He did enough crimes that we have the ability to launch multiple investigations. The fact that we don't have prosecutors tripping over themselves to get this guy is a real concern. We should have greedy prosecutors who want to make a name for themselves trying to get this guy. Why don't we? I can tell you why. It's hard for your career. It's bad for your career to go after the powerful in the United States because you're likely to lose and you won't be promoted for it. You won't be beloved for it. Unless there is a strong popular backing. Unless there is public outrage. Unless the public will not permit a prosecutor that does not do their job. We need to demonstrate that. We need to demonstrate that by contacting the DOJ. We need to demonstrate that by talking to our state attorney generals through email and saying, listen, I expect you to look out for me. That is your job. I see you failing to do it in Arizona. I see you failing to do it in Pennsylvania. I see you failing to do it in Nevada. I see you failing to do it in New Mexico. I see you failing to do it in Wisconsin. I see you waiting on Merrick Garland, who would rather have a warm cup of tea and a long nap than put in a day's work as a prosecutor. And I see you failing me. And you will not be the Attorney General after the next election if you do not pursue state charges for the false electors. Do that. Links in the description. Do that.
And to be clear, this has now passed the Georgia legislature as of tonight. A version of this bill passed the state Senate, and the House just passed it tonight. And the Republican governor there, Brian Kemp, he says he will sign it. He is a strong supporter of this. So they're doing it. And I don't know, maybe this would be easier to see if it were happening in another country. And, you know, maybe the leader of their party is still going to face criminal charges in other jurisdictions where he is under criminal investigation, like federally where he's under criminal investigation, or in New York State where he's under criminal investigation. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, none of us know. But in the one place where he is under criminal investigation and his party is in full control of the state government, they have just decided for the first time in that state's history that it is now, for the first time, within their own power to remove prosecutors in the middle of their duties on their own say-so. And yes, this is a story about Georgia, and yes, this is a story about Trump and the potential charges he's facing, but this is a whole new step for us as a country. This is a new thing for us as a democracy. This is not ranting against the investigators. We've seen that before. And calling people names and even picking off individuals in the law enforcement system to try to turn them into enemies. As bad as that all is, we have seen all of that before. This is not just trying to verbally and politically delegitimize the investigating entities. Those are all very bad things to do, but this is more. Sticks and stones, right? But this is dismantling the way the legal system works, so presumably it can no longer work against him.
And it is exactly what I have been warning about, and exactly why we need multiple states to pursue charges against the fake electors. I also recommend going with a previous plan. I'm going to be gentle to Rachel there. I also recommend going against the previous. I recommend going for a previous plan recommended after. See if I can find that. There we go. After we heard about Florida's SB 1248. If you don't remember that, Florida's SB 1248, it's Senate Bill 1248, suggested that Democrats be banned from Florida, the Democratic Party. It'd be kicked out. You can't run as a Democrat. Why? What was their justification? Their justification was that the Democrats in the 1860s supported slavery. That's correct. In fact, back when Democrats were the conservative party and Republicans were the left-leaning party, Democrats did indeed support slavery. That's what conservatives supported. The people who recommended that bill were clowns. But I suggest that we do a bill similar to Florida's Senate Bill 1248, but change it instead to ban any party whose current membership includes people who have participated in the January 6th insurrection. I suggest in that bill that we include a 60-day window that would allow that party to preserve itself by expelling those members who betrayed our country. It just became a lot more relevant, folks. Look, we keep watching Republicans take the gloves off, and then we allow ourselves to box with them for 12 rounds before we consider. All right, it's 12 rounds is the whole match. We box with them for 6 rounds, half the match, before we also take our gloves off. Let's not keep doing that. That's a dumb strategy. I'm not saying we be the first to take our gloves off, but clearly the gloves are off. So let's join them. I also recommend you write your senator, link in the description, tell them that you want them to, your state senator I'm talking about, tell them that you want them to introduce a bill that would ban any party whose membership includes people who have participated in an insurrection against the United States. Anybody who was part of the Jan 6 riot should disqualify their party, their whole party, from membership, because if their party is allowing them in, they have made clear where they stand on that issue, and that issue is un-American. We cannot allow that to be treated as though it's a normal political party. It's not. It's a criminal organization. There's another aspect of this that Rachel Maddow did not cover, but our good friend Michael Popak did. Have a look.
Michael Popak, Legal AF, with breaking news. Well, the Georgia legislature, pressured by outside forces like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Republican MAGA in Congress, are going after Fani T. Willis, the prosecutor of Fulton County, who's on the verge, on the precipice of going after Donald Trump for conspiracy and racketeering and all sorts of things related to election interference, coming out of the special grand jury's recommendation about multiple defendants involved with election interference. How do I know? The legislature's going after Fani T. Willis and likely the 14 other minority and black prosecutors in Georgia out of 50, because there are several bills being passed around the primarily white legislature, which is targeting prosecutors and specifically Fani T. Willis. These bills are trying to set up an oversight board of 8 people appointed by the governor, Governor Kemp, in this case, who would, quote unquote, oversee and possibly remove prosecutors for whatever willful misconduct those Republican right-wingers come up with. This oversight was not necessary, apparently, in 2020 when there really was an example of a corrupt prosecutor who refused to prosecute the white murderers of Ahmaud Arbery when they chased him through a neighborhood in Georgia and executed him on the side of a road.
I don't know if you remember that, but yes, there was a great deal of controversy around that. This was a lynching. There's aside from the murder tool used, there's not a difference. They saw a black guy. They didn't like the cut of his jib because guess what? It was a black guy and they were racist. They ran him down and they killed him. In the 21st century, this happened. The prosecutor at the time did not want to pursue him. Didn't want to go after charges for the 2 people that did this. Well, Democrats tried to respond to this. Republicans used that genuine effort to pursue justice in the United States, and as they always do, they turned it on its head in this case. They are trying to use it now to go after Fani Willis, who's going after Trump. And they've changed the bill so that a tiny, tiny sliver of people in Georgia need to agree with it, like 2%. 2% of the population. That's it. The person who would decide, the final deciders of who would give the yes or no to the prosecutor, would be a board appointed by the governor. Governor is a Republican. Now, look, this bill, theoretically, could be used for good. Indeed, it could. But it requires a left-leaning governor in office to appoint that board. And it gives way too much power to the governor. It's like saying if you had a king, you could have a good king. Yeah, you could have a good king, a kind-hearted king. Except we decided a couple of 100 years ago that we did not want a system of government like that. We wanted a system of government that was not minority rule, that was not ruled by a sliver of our population. We wanted a democracy. We wanted us to get together, vote on things, and decide what should be. Having 2% of the population constantly get to say, no. Not good, folks. Add in gerrymandering, and you have the corrupt system we have today.
That prosecutor was found to have committed misconduct. She was white, and there was a move in 2020 by Democratic legislators in Georgia to set up an oversight board. And do you know how many Republican legislators joined in and helped set up that bill or helped set up that oversight board? Exactly 0.
So I just wanted to include that bit from Michael Popak because it illustrates that this is not about the principle of the law. Obvious. I mean, we knew that. But I just wanted to be absolutely clear that this is not some law that they've been considering for a while and saying, well, we don't know if we structure it this way, then maybe. No. It's naked partisan politics. Before, when that was done, there was a reason. There was a thing that had happened that showed a weakness in the system, showed problems. We had a Georgian killed and no justice was being sought for him. That was a legitimate pursuit of this policy. What is happening now is naked partisan politics. It's an embarrassment. Let me tell you what you can do about it. So look, it's time to hit these people harder than we have been. Number one, the most important thing to do, encourage, if you live in a fake elector state, encourage your attorney general to go after the fake electors. The fake elector states are Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. In Georgia, that was also a fake elector state. All right, Georgia and Michigan were also fake elector states. But Michigan's got an investigation open. A couple of rowdy Michiganders sent enough emails, and the attorney general, I say a couple, probably numbers somewhere around 30, sent enough emails that the attorney general understood that the people wanted a state-level investigation opened. In Georgia, obviously, Fani Willis, superstar. She has been pursuing the charges as well. Got good news for Chris Mays, the Attorney General of Arizona. It looks like she is considering strongly opening a state-level investigation, but she hasn't. In New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, not a peep. Let me stress, those are all Democrat attorney generals, or Democratic attorney generals, Christ. Those are all Democratic attorney generals. That means they're going to be not hypnotized by their own party. They may listen to their constituents on this. But right now, they don't think their constituents give a damn. They think you are the same sheep that we have always been. It's not accurate. It's not true. It's simply the habit of people who lean left to be polite, to follow procedure, etc., etc., etc. And it is not a cultural habit of ours to, say, write an email to our Attorney General. Make it a cultural habit. Make sure that Chris Mays in Arizona knows, if you live in Arizona, that you want that pursued. Make sure Raul Torres in New Mexico knows that you want that pursued. Make sure Aaron Ford in Nevada knows that you want that pursued. Make sure that Josh Shapiro and his likely replacement Michelle Henry in Pennsylvania wants that pursued. Make sure that Josh Call in Wisconsin knows that you want that pursued. Write their email. The link is in the description. The other thing we can do is hit harder than we have been hitting. It's obvious at this point that the Republican Party as it exists is a criminal organization. We need to treat it as such. We can be merciful and give them an opportunity to get their party in order. But we cannot leave them the option of continuing to exist as they have been, because it is a party of traitors. It's a party of traitors. As it currently exists, it cannot go on. So tell your representatives that you want them to introduce a bill similar to Florida's bill, SB 1248, but change it instead to ban any party whose current membership includes people who have participated in the January 6th insurrection. When I say we can be merciful, I mean we can include a 60-day window, it's 2 whole months, that would allow that party to preserve itself by expelling those members who betrayed our country. Give it a thought, folks. I think it would be good for our country. Franny P., new member, excellent. I'm delighted to have you. She says, this is what happens when both parties are corrupt and owned by oligarchies. Correct. We do have, fortunately, enough strength left over from the design of our country to fight against this. Let me make sure that there we are. Meaning we can do things, for example, like contacting our state attorney generals. We can make it clear that we will vote in primaries according to our belief that the person will actually pursue justice. We can lean this where it needs to go, but the first and most important thing that we have to do is make sure that our current leaders know where we stand. This is so that while they are in office, they do things that we like. They are motivated to appeal to us. So they understand that sitting on their hands, which, by the way, for my entire life has been the Democratic playbook, is just sit by, do nothing, and go when Republicans do something bad. Make sure they know they got to do it. But it's also to give people who might be in their office and might be left-leaning a chance to be like, wait a minute. If I run for office, because I don't like my dumb boss, if I run for office, there's a constituency here for me. I see how my boss is not doing things the way the people want done. And if I run for office, I'm going to do things different. We have to play the short game and the long game at the same time. And you do that by being a loud voice. Republicans, do you remember the Dungeons and Dragons panic back in the day? What was it? The Satanic Panic? It was a bunch of busybodies just writing letters to newspapers and writing letters to news organizations on TV and writing letters to their government. That's all that was. We need to take that busybody energy but put it towards something that actually requires some work. Catherine Wolf says, before you go to a protest, please look up some vids about how to stay safe. Things like what to wear, what to take, and what not to take. Wholeheartedly agreed. Let me throw this at you as well. When you go to a protest, if you're, wear your Sunday best. It might sound crazy, but it has an important role. And Martin Luther King figured this out, decades and decades and decades ago. In the middle of the last century, Martin Luther King figured this out. What did he tell his people to do? Put on suits and ties. Make them see that they are beating up on decent Americans. Put on your Sunday best when you go to a protest. It's for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you happen to get arrested, I hope you don't, but if you happen to get arrested, or if you're doing civil disobedience and the intention is to get arrested, it forces the cameras to get a shot of police arresting somebody in a suit and tie or a lady in a nice dress or, folks that in the public's mind, whether that is just or not, don't match up with what a criminal looks like. And of course, it makes the police more hesitant because they know that. It makes them more hesitant to arrest you in the first place. Strongly consider that. Well, in a piece of delightful news, let's talk about the Fox Dominion lawsuit. I included this, I was going to do one of those normal things where I just got the words on the screen and I'm in a box reading the words, telling you what happened, yada, yada. But Bo is so darn tickled by this, I had to include Bo of the Fifth Column's take on the more recent developments that we've learned in the Fox Dominion lawsuit. I will also point out they are hilarious. Here it is.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again.
Hey, Bo.
So today we are going to talk about Fox and Zoom and the New York Times. And I'm going to do something I pretty much never do on this channel. I'm going to give you links to articles. Quite a few, actually.
Now, I just want to point out that I have looked at those links, and that is going to be part of this presentation. But your old pal Jake does links every time. Because we have different goals for our channels, but man.
You know, in a recent video, I tried to manage expectations and talked about how these cases, like the one that is going forward against Fox, they normally don't win. It's incredibly hard to prove defamation. It's hard to demonstrate what you need to demonstrate to show that a media company has gone that far off the rails. Okay, so the New York Times has reportedly obtained a Zoom call of Fox higher-ups. The call is from November 16th, 2020, according to their reporting. The call itself and the communications that kind of stemmed from that are nothing short of amazing. They are very telling. There's a lot of quotes in it worth reading. I will link the original article and some other summaries of it. It's worth going through, particularly if you ever watch Fox, because this takes you behind the scenes and you get to see some of the things in the decision-making process that generally you might not be able to see. Here is one of the more telling quotes. Listen, it's one of the sad realities. If we hadn't called Arizona those 3 or 4 days following Election Day, our ratings would have been bigger. The mystery would have still been hanging out there. There was an entire discussion over this. Now, if you don't remember, during the election, Fox called Arizona, correctly, mind you, for Biden. And they did it first. At most news agencies, that's a good thing. Like, that's something you should be proud of. Not just were you right, you were also first. Being right should be most important. It often isn't, depending on the outlet. But they were right and they were first.
I finally get to lean on my local news background a little bit here. Yeah, it's a big damn deal to be first. Like, it's one, you have to make sure you are absolutely, positively, 100% correct if you announce this thing. Because you will get shredded by your competition, and rightly so. If you call it incorrectly, they'll tear you to bits. Why is it important to be first? It means you have the strongest team combing through the data. You have the most knowledgeable folks. You have the most. You got the most reliable news team. It's not necessarily so, but could be luck. Sometimes you refresh the PDF that has the results from a certain county just as they upload it, instead of 2 minutes later or whatever. But yeah, it is a big deal, and it is without question, if you're dealing with reality, it is without question that you would want that, unless, of course, you don't actually care, and your audience doesn't actually care about what reality is. If you're not measuring, if you're not simply there to report the news, but you're there to do something else, then it might not matter. But you're not a news organization.
That should be a win. But They were actually upset because their audience was mad about it. And there was even reportedly, depending on the articles you're going to look at, some of them will tell you that there was actually discussion about maybe taking it back or maybe not making calls so soon because they don't want to upset their viewers with the truth. That's pretty wild. Here's another one that I just found amazing.
Before it goes on, let me just point something out. Imagine you're Fox News, and imagine you know that your viewers believe the election was stolen. It wasn't stolen, but let's just go with this for a while. Fox could come out and say, look, what has every other news organization said now after we called it? They said the same thing. So with the information available to us, we made the right call first. And then they could have a debate about whether or not the information available to them was accurate. That is how they could have spun it if they still wanted to appeal to the crazies. But it never even occurred to them to approach things as a news organization does. Just think about that. It never occurred to them to even lie in the way a news organization would, as in saying we don't have complete information. What instead they talked about is how to better be goons for the Republicans. Let's have Bo break it down a little more, or in his own way, which I enjoy immensely.
But I think we're living in a new world in a sense, where half of the voting population doesn't believe in big corporations, big tech, big media. There's a lack of trust. And when they feel like things are being done behind closed doors in rooms that they can't understand, it exacerbates the emotion and how they feel about the process. Fox is a big media company. They're a big corporation, and I mean, I don't think they qualify as big tech necessarily, but I mean, 2 out of 3 isn't bad, right? And as a news organization, it would be their job to inform them. But when you look through these conversations, that isn't what I take away from it. That's not what I take away as them believing their mission is. It seems like their mission is more to protect the brand, which is a term that comes up. Again, I don't often do this. There are going to be links down below. Read the articles. If you want to understand the decision-making process and some of the stuff that happened at Fox, it's definitely worth your time. I'll even put some summary videos that go through some of the quotes or something like that down there as well.
Well, fortunately, you are on a channel which is going to do that right now, because he is quite correct. It's just a delight. Let's transfer over there. Here's the best article. Of course, it's from Media Matters. Let's have a look at what they say. Ooh, mercy me. Breitbart and Martha MacCallum, the two main anchors, or excuse me, Bret Baier and, I don't know why I said Breitbart. Bret Baier. Test. Okay, good. And Martha MacCallum, the two main anchors, suggested it was not enough to call a state based on numerical calculations. Wild that you would do anything other than that. The standard by which networks have made such a determination for generations, but that viewer reaction should be considered. In a Trump environment, Miss MacCallum said, the game is just very, very different. Ms. Scott invited Mr. Baer and Ms. McCallum, the face of the network, as she called them, that Ms. Scott being the head of Fox, to describe the heat they were taking according to the recording reviewed by the Times. "We are still getting bombarded," Mr. Baer said. "It became really hurtful." Oh. He said projections were not enough to call a state when it would be so sensitive. As in, they don't have the guts to tell the truth to their viewers. "I know the statistics and the numbers, but there has to be, like, this other layer so they could think beyond about the implications. Like maybe they lie to their audience constantly, and now it's biting them in the butt." Miss McCallum agreed. "There's just obviously been a tremendous amount of backlash, which is, I think, more than any of us anticipated. And so there's the layer between statistics and news judgment about timing that I think is a factor. For a loud faction of our viewership," she said, "the call was a blow." Neither she nor Mr. Baer explained exactly what they meant by another layer. A person who was in the meeting and spoke on condition of anonymity, of course, cowards, to describe internal discussions, said on Saturday that Mr. Baer had been talking about processes because he was upset the decision desk had made the Arizona call without letting the anchors know first. Again, this is absolutely bizarre behavior for a supposed news organization. Let's just read this other quote. "The Trump campaign was really pissed," he wrote in an email to Jay Wallace, the president and executive editor of Fox. "The situation is getting uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. I keep having to defend us on air." Think about what he just said. The Trump campaign was really pissed. Why would a news organization care about what the losing candidate's campaign says? They don't. They never have, unless they are Fox, in which case they are just a shill for the GOP. They are a propaganda outlet. They are nothing more. They should not be considered a news organization. Hopefully they won't be. All right, so what can you do about this? It's pretty straightforward. Take advantage of the fact that right now Fox is doing basically a blackout of this coverage. They're not discussing the lawsuit on air. It's probably a wise move legally. It would probably get them in trouble to discuss this on air. They did that at all. Fortunately, that gives us an opportunity. All those people that would have been really pissed about them calling the election accurately, their talking points came from Fox in the first place, by and large. All of their retorts to sense and logic have to first get generated by Fox. Take advantage of that and simply ask questions that you know MAGA people in your community can't answer. If you have somebody who is a MAGA cultist who has fallen down the Fox rabbit hole, if you got an old uncle who's sharing insane Facebook memes and starting to say white nationalist talking points without really understanding them, this is the best time to ask him, did you hear what Tucker Carlson said about you? Did you hear what Sean Hannity said about Fox viewers? It just seems kind of disrespectful to me. When they go looking for that information, the only place they will be able to find it are either general corporate media, which for once is telling the full truth, or lefty outlets. Because the right-wingers know what they did. The right-wingers are in trouble right now. There's no good answer for them right now. Tucker Carlson can't say, I didn't say that. You will necessarily be breaking the veil, piercing the veil, and giving these people a chance to see the truth. Let's have a gander at some comments. Oh, Wireless Mike says, hello, people. I'm late to the show, but glad I made it while you're still live. Well, I'm delighted that you're here, sir. We're doing a 2 for Tuesday, which means in about an hour, I'm going to be doing another stream. So by all means, stand by for that. Bo is indeed the GOAT. Appearances are indeed important, but so is accuracy. Yes, I agree. And they didn't want to anger the cult. Yeah, that's exactly correct. The cult they made. Irony of ironies. Well, as much as I do love rocking this, I see we just got another viewer. I would ask that you, first of all, leave a like if you enjoyed the stream, and consider subscribing. And most of all, I hope you'll join me in about an hour when we do our second 2 for Tuesday. I'll see you then. Oh, by the way, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. And my name's Jake.